The lawyer representing 4 of the 5 accused in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial wants to argue for a trial within a trial. Now, SABC News understands that Advocate Malesela Teffo has drawn up papers where he will argue that accused 1 and 2 were forced into confession after allegedly being severely assaulted and that they were allegedly never read their rights. Let's cross now to our reporter Chriselda Lewis, who's been keeping an eagle eye on these proceedings for us. Chriselda, good morning. It's been stop, start, and now, of course, just one development after the other, and this trial just keeps on giving. But now, a trial within a trial. Let's talk.
Well, Sakina, good morning to you. Indeed, we got wind of this on Friday already when Advocate Malesela Teffo had basically rose in this court and said that they would want to bring a trial within a trial on the simple basis that, according to his argument, accused number 1 and 2, who we understand had made a confession, he says were assaulted, were forced to give that a confession. And he essentially says that, according to what we know at this stage, is that he wants the cross-examination of Thabo Mosia, who was the first forensic detective who was at the scene, at the crime scene back in 2014 when Senzo Meyiwa was killed. He wants the cross-examination to be halted, and basically Kelly Khumalo and others who were occupants in the house at the time that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, instead to take the stand. You're correct. What we expect, if indeed this application is even allowed, is that what Advocate Malesela Teffo is basically saying is that, his clients had been forced into confession, also that accused number 2 and number 1 were allegedly assaulted to incriminate themselves. And I also understand he also wants to argue that the 2 were not even in the province at the time when this murder was believed to have taken place. I know that what he's also asking for is that he says that his clients were never read their rights, and essentially they've been prejudiced in that regard. And instead of this trial going ahead, there should be this trial within a trial where these issues can be ventilated before the matter itself can continue to be heard. But we know already from Friday when the presiding judge, Chifiwa Maumela, basically ruled that the so-called rising of Advocate Malesela Teffo was not in accordance with how things are supposed to be done. He then said he planned to bring that formal application. I know that those papers have been drawn up, but I've still been waiting to hear from the court on whether the papers themselves have been received. So what we're expecting this morning is for the legal representatives all in this particular matter to meet with the presiding judge in his chambers before we begin. They will decide on a way forward, because you must recall as well, Sakina, on Friday we had adjourned quite early because Thabo Mosia had fallen ill. What we heard from the state prosecutor then, Advocate George Baloy, was that the medication that Mosia had taken was having an adverse effect on him. And what the court then said was that if he was not feeling well this morning, a second witness will be called. So in this particular aspect, what will be critical to hear this morning is whether the documents themselves have been submitted to this particular court for this trial within a trial. How will we proceed this morning, in particular because the state's first witness had fallen ill on Friday, whether we will proceed to a second witness or Mosia himself will take the stand again this morning, and whether the plan of the defense representing accused number 1 to 4 will certainly succeed. But what they're contending is that accused number 1 and 2 had been forced into confession, and instead of Mosia continuing with the cross-examination here by Advocate Zandile Mshololo, in fact, Kelly Khumalo and others should be taking the stand.
So those has been the case throughout this trial. Very interesting developments, Chriselda. We've seen since the start of this trial, Advocate Teffo complaining about, I think it was accused number 3 at the beginning, who had been intimidated and assaulted, as he had alleged, and wanted that matter to be dealt with. Now you have this matter, the trial within the trial, and of course the witnesses. And do we know whether there is like a list of witnesses? Of course, we don't know how this is going to play out, but do we know who we can look forward to seeing on the stand at some point in this trial?
Sakina, very difficult to say at this particular point, and in particular because we've also tried to thread quite carefully in instances of, speaking about who those possible witnesses could be, because there's been a serious contention in this matter from all quarters of those representing this particular case, is that, witnesses themselves are fearing for their lives at this particular point. It's been raised several times about how some of the legal representatives have also gone about doing their work in this particular trial. Every time we think that possibly the next witness could be a particular individual, we know that on Friday, the second witness who is due to take the stand, we're not sure when at this particular point as a result of this possible application that might come. The second witness was in court, but I'm afraid I'm not going to mention exactly who they are at this point because it has been raised several times inside this court that the witnesses themselves fear for their lives. We know that a number of issues have been raised. You would recall as well when you had the lawyer representing Kelly Khumalo, who had basically spoken about how her client feels prejudiced, how she wants her day in court. You also had the instructing attorney for accused 124, Timothy Tobane, who said that he was going to lay a complaint against her because they felt that she was intimidating witnesses. So at this particular point, it's one of those trials where you really have to thread carefully in terms of mentioning either names of witnesses that will take the stand in this particular matter because of the intricacies that we've had to navigate since the start, where witnesses are feeling at this particular point they're fearing for their lives. And we've heard one of the defense advocates also indicate that they too have experienced some threat or the other.
Well, Chriselda, looking forward to those proceedings. Are they starting early because of the time that was lost on Friday, or will it be the usual time?
I'm expecting, Sakina, for proceedings to get underway at 10 o'clock this morning. I think before that, I remember I did indicate that legal representatives are scheduled to meet with Judge Teffo Maumele in his quarters this morning. I would suspect that that's going to happen before 10 o'clock so that we're able to get proceedings underway and at 10 o'clock. So if there's any delay in terms of that matter, that will certainly be as a result of this engagement that the presiding judge will have with the legal representatives this morning. But the expectation is that at 10 o'clock this morning.
Chriselda, looking forward to further updates from you throughout the day. And that's SABC reporter Chriselda Lewis in the Pretoria High Court following the Senzo Meyiwa trial for us.